For over 40 years, she said nothing. But as the end drew near, Nancy Rooks, Elvis Presley's most trusted confidant, finally spoke out.
A few moments after he passed away, someone told me to clean up the glass and the table. I innocently did it, and I regret it now.
What she revealed wasn't just powerful. It was explosive, dark truths, final words, moments that shook her to the core. Was she protecting Elvis? Or covering up something sinister no one was ever meant to know? Graceland's quiet witness. Nancy B. Rooks didn't meet Elvis Presley on stage or behind velvet ropes. She first saw him in his kitchen, barefoot, in slippers, casually asking if there was any bacon left. That moment wasn't part of any concert or media interview. It was the beginning of something quietly significant. Nancy was hired in 1967 to work as a maid and cook at Graceland. At the time, it seemed like a short-term job. When she first arrived, she met Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, who told her she might be let go once the other maid returned. But until then, she could just help out with whatever she saw that needed to be done. That might have discouraged anyone else, not Nancy. She saw an opportunity and decided to give it everything she had. She worked hard, always focused, always thorough, and it paid off. Instead of being let go, she was hired full-time. She worked the 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. shift. A maid on duty at midnight might sound odd in any regular home, but nothing about life at Graceland followed ordinary rules. Elvis's world was full of late nights, unexpected guests, and sudden plans. Nancy adapted quickly. More than just a staff member, she became someone who fit seamlessly into the rhythm of that house. Over time, Nancy's role became deeply personal. She wasn't just cleaning rooms or preparing meals. She became a steady presence in the background of Elvis's life. She witnessed quiet breakfasts, spontaneous laughter, and even moments of emotional turmoil. Things fans could only imagine. But Nancy didn't see Elvis as the larger-than-life icon millions screamed for. She saw the man behind the name. A man who yawned, got hungry at midnight, and sometimes just needed someone nearby who didn't treat him like a legend. Behind Elvis's legend. He was just a baby born in a small 2-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. On January 8, 1935, Elvis Aaron Presley came into the world. His parents, Vernon and Gladys, were simple people with big dreams. No one could have guessed that their son would one day become one of the most iconic names in music history. As a child, Elvis found music everywhere, at church, on the radio, and on the streets. He grew up listening to gospel choirs, country melodies, and pop hits. But something else caught his ear too. Black rhythm and blues music, echoing from the clubs and bars of Beale Street in Memphis. That mix of influences, black and white, sacred and secular, would shape his entire sound. By the time he was a teenager, Elvis wasn't just listening anymore. He was singing, and in 1954, his voice found a home at Sun Records in Memphis. That was the beginning. Within a year, RCA Victor bought his recording contract. By 1956, Elvis wasn't just famous. He was a global sensation. But what made him so different? It wasn't just his music. It was how he changed music. He took different styles, gospel, country, pop, and R&B, and brought them together in a way no one else had. And he did it at a time when society was deeply divided. His sound crossed racial lines. His performances challenged norms. He danced differently. He dressed differently. And people noticed. Millions loved him. His voice, his moves, his smile, they were unforgettable. But beyond the spotlight, there was more to Elvis. He had a gentle heart. He stayed kind to his fans and never forgot where he came from. Even with all the fame, he remained deeply connected to his roots and to his family. The world knew him as Elvis. No last name was needed. He became a symbol, not just of music, but of change. He stood at the crossroads of culture, race, and music at a time when the country needed something new. And what he brought wasn't just sound, it was energy, movement, and emotion. The King at Home. Nancy Rooks wasn't just Elvis Presley's maid. She was one of the few people who saw the real man behind the legend. Working inside Graceland until the day he died, Nancy didn't just describe Elvis as a boss. She called him family. According to her, Elvis treated her with a level of kindness and respect that went far beyond what most people would expect from someone of his fame. In later interviews, Nancy would often say, "He was raised right." Even when things got wild, whether it was the phones ringing nonstop or the constant stream of visitors pouring into the mansion, Elvis never lost his manners. Amid the chaos, he remained grounded, always treating her with dignity. But working at Graceland wasn't easy. Elvis kept an unpredictable schedule. If he was awake at 3 in the morning and craving bacon, biscuits, or sweet potato pie, Nancy would be there, apron tied, ready to cook. Her duties went far beyond housework. Sometimes she'd help Elvis put on his pants, even while he was still wearing them. She organized his wardrobe, arranged his personal belongings just the way he liked, prepared the pool area, and adjusted to a lifestyle where day and night meant nothing. There were no fixed routines. Everything revolved around Elvis's moods, needs, and the ever-changing environment of Graceland. Yet, Nancy never complained. She adapted. She understood the pressures he faced, the fame, the expectations, the loneliness. And because she was there through all of it, she saw sides of Elvis that the world never knew. What Nancy witnessed wasn't just celebrity behavior or eccentric habits. She saw a man who, despite the whirlwind around him, kept his humanity. Years after his death, she would speak about the emotional toll it took watching him struggle with fame, addiction, and exhaustion, things hidden from the public eye. But even then, she never stopped admiring him as a person. Nancy Rooks eventually opened up about what life inside Graceland was really like. Not the glamorous version the fans imagined, but the late-night cravings, the emotional outbursts, and the rare, quiet moments that revealed Elvis's vulnerability. Maid's Graceland Memoir. For 10 years, Nancy Rooks worked quietly behind the scenes at Graceland, cooking meals and cleaning rooms for Elvis Presley and his family. She wasn't just a maid. She witnessed the private world of the King of Rock and Roll when the spotlight was off. In 2005, she shared her experiences in a memoir titled Inside Graceland. Elvis's Maid Remembers. But even then, she didn't tell the whole story. Nancy wrote with warmth and respect. She didn't dive into rumors or tabloid-style drama. Instead, she focused on the man she knew, his routines, his habits, and his quiet moments. She gave the world stories filled with gentle humor and care. But she also admitted there were some things she kept to herself. In a few rare interviews, Nancy said she held back details out of loyalty, not fear. She felt that certain truths weren't meant for the world just yet. Even so, fans were captivated by every word she offered. People longed to know what Elvis was like when the cameras stopped rolling. What did he eat for breakfast? How did he spend quiet mornings at home? Nancy gave just enough to keep the mystery alive, like how Elvis liked his bacon fried crisp, his eggs scrambled just right, and how he was particular about cleanliness, sometimes showering multiple times a day. She remembered how his eyes, even when tired, always scanned the room as if searching for something that was never there. These small details weren't just trivia. They gave a fuller picture of the man behind the fame. Nancy's greatest gift wasn't the gossip she refused to spill. It was the humanity she restored to Elvis. Through her stories, he stopped being just a legend, a headline, or a tragedy. He became real again. But in her final days, Nancy hinted there was more. Things she had never told. Secrets she had promised to guard, but maybe no longer needed to. Secrets from inside Graceland. For more than 4 decades, Nancy Rooks kept quiet. As a maid and cook at Elvis Presley's Graceland mansion, she had seen the king of rock and roll in his most private moments. She knew what life looked like behind the glamour and applause, but she never told anyone. That changed shortly before her death in 2022, when Nancy finally opened up. What she shared was not the picture-perfect image fans expected. Instead, her account revealed the final years of Elvis's life were full of isolation, erratic routines, and emotional chaos. Nancy remembered how unpredictable Elvis became. His eating and sleeping habits were all over the place. Sometimes he would be up all night, wandering Graceland, and then suddenly disappear to sleep for hours. She said his energy would come and go, but his charm never faded. Still, something always felt off. Nancy also revealed something few people knew. She had actually met Elvis years before, working at Graceland. Back when she lived on Alabama Street in Memphis, she lived across from the Presley family. She didn't realize this until one day at work, when she was dusting a childhood photo of Elvis. It hit her. He was the same boy from the old neighborhood. She also shared how she went from just being a maid to becoming a cook at the mansion. One day, while standing nearby, Nancy watched as Priscilla Presley fired another maid for taking too many days off. Without much warning, Priscilla turned to Nancy and said she'd be helping out in the kitchen from now on. And just like that, Nancy's role at Graceland expanded. But the moment that stuck with Nancy most happened during the early hours of August 16, 1977, the day Elvis died. She was in the kitchen when Elvis walked in, looking tired but still polite. She offered him breakfast, like she always did, but Elvis just shook his head. "No, I don't want anything to eat right now," he said. "I just want to get some sleep, but I would like to have some water." Nancy didn't think much of it. It was a hot night, and he looked exhausted. She sent Pauline, another maid, upstairs with a jug of ice water. It was the kind used for orange juice, with a handle on the side. Later, Pauline told her something was strange. Elvis grabbed the jug and drank it fast. Too fast. "I ain't never seen him drink water like that," she said. The day Elvis fell silent. The ambulance approached Graceland quickly, its siren cutting through the morning air. The iron gates were already open. The driver made a sharp turn up the winding driveway toward the mansion's white-pillared entrance. One of Elvis Presley's bodyguards waved the medics in. Without hesitation, they grabbed their equipment and rushed inside. Upstairs, in the bathroom, they found nearly a dozen people gathered around a man lying flat on his back, wearing only pajamas. The medics pushed through the crowd, still unsure who the victim was, until they spotted the thick graying sideburns and a heavy gold medallion. That's when they realized it was Elvis. Earlier that morning, around 9:30 a.m., Nancy Rooks, Elvis's longtime maid, heard something from upstairs. It was a dull thump, not a crash, but something that didn't feel right. She paused, listening carefully. No one screamed. There were no voices or footsteps, just silence. Eventually, she told herself it was nothing and got back to her chores. Hours later, at about 1:50 p.m., the intercom buzzed. It was Ginger Alden, Elvis's girlfriend. Her voice was shaky, barely clear. "Who's down there? Something bad has happened up here," she said. Nancy felt a chill. "What is it?" she asked, already fearing the worst. But Ginger only cried. That's when Nancy knew this was no small accident. She dropped the phone and ran. Her heart pounded with each step up the stairs. She turned the corner, entered the dressing room, and saw him, Elvis, face down on the bathroom floor. "Oh my God," she whispered. He wasn't moving. She didn't scream. She didn't freeze. She ran back downstairs and alerted the rest of the Memphis Mafia. Everyone needed to know, and they needed to know now. Panic started to grow, but not for Nancy. When the ambulance arrived, the medics looked overwhelmed. Graceland wasn't an ordinary house. Nancy stepped in. She showed them how to navigate the narrow halls and sharp corners, guiding them step by step as they carried the stretcher up the stairs and into the bathroom. When they finally brought him down, Nancy stood still. She looked at Elvis one last time. He looked just like he was asleep, she later recalled, but he wasn't. By the time they reached him, Elvis had already passed. Blue spots had started to appear on his face. Elvis Presley's autopsy cover-up? Elvis Presley's autopsy didn't just raise questions, it triggered an intense investigation that would shake the medical community. Leading the autopsy was Dr. Eric Muirhead, the hospital's chief of pathology, joined by a team of 9 skilled doctors. They thoroughly examined Presley's body and found no evidence of stroke, heart failure, or lung disease. However, they noted he was suffering from chronic conditions like diabetes and severe constipation. Physical signs pointed to possible long-term drug use, but only toxicology results could confirm that. Despite the team still analyzing their findings, something unexpected happened. That same evening at 8 p.m., medical examiner Dr. Jerry Francisco held a press conference. Although he had merely observed the autopsy, he took the lead in speaking for the entire medical team. Francisco declared that Elvis had died from cardiac arrhythmia. He also confidently stated that drugs were not a contributing factor, and there was no evidence of drug abuse. This statement stunned Dr. Muirhead and the autopsy team. Not only had Francisco spoken prematurely, but his conclusion also didn't align with what the team had observed. They hadn't finalized any cause of death yet, but many suspected that drug use played a key role. Still, the public largely accepted Francisco's version of events, at least for a while. Weeks later, the toxicology report told a different story. It revealed dangerously high levels of pharmaceutical drugs in Elvis's system, including Dilaudid, Quaalude, Demerol, Percodan, and codeine. This revelation sparked a deeper investigation. The Tennessee Board of Health launched an inquiry into Presley's death and turned its attention to his physician, Dr. George Nicopolis. What they uncovered was staggering. Since 1975, Dr. Nicopolis had written prescriptions for more than 8,000 doses of medication to Presley. In court, he admitted to it, but claimed he was trying to manage Elvis's addiction by steering him away from illegal street drugs. The jury accepted this defense and cleared him of wrongdoing. However, that wasn't the end. In 1980, Nicopolis was indicted again for overprescribing drugs, not just to Elvis, but also to singer Jerry Lee Lewis. He was acquitted once more. But in 1995, the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners finally revoked his license for consistently overprescribing medication. Elvis's last secret revealed. What if the real story behind Elvis Presley's final moments wasn't in the pages of any book, but in what wasn't said? For years, people believed that Nancy Rooks, Elvis's longtime maid, had already told everything in her memoir. But what if the most critical part was the one she deliberately left out? Not because she wanted to forget, but because she wasn't ready to face it. Not because she was protecting him, but because she was protecting herself. Nancy had been loyal for decades. She defended Elvis in every interview, painted his memory with warmth and kindness, and shared only the sweet, innocent side of life at Graceland. But something changed near the end of her life. In 2022, just months before she passed, Nancy made a quiet confession, one that shook those closest to her. There were no cameras, no press, no public stage. Just a simple, powerful sentence. It's time to tell everything. At first, her friends didn't quite understand. What did she mean? Everything? Hadn't she already told the world what it needed to hear? But slowly, Nancy began opening up. Not for attention, not for fame, just for peace. For the first time, she admitted that Elvis's condition in the weeks before his death was far worse than anyone ever knew. She had seen the signs. He wasn't just tired, he was exhausted. He wasn't just taking medication. He was surrounded by pills, some never prescribed to him, passed casually around by those in his inner circle. She recalled seeing new bottles thrown in the trash almost daily. Elvis would drift off mid-conversation, even mid-meal. Back then, she brushed it off. But in hindsight, she realized it wasn't just fatigue. It was something deeper, something dangerous. And then came the moment Nancy had never dared to speak about publicly. The day Elvis died. When Ginger Alden found him unresponsive and screamed for help, Nancy was one of the first to rush in. She froze at the sight of his lifeless body. But before the ambulance even arrived, someone whispered to her, "Clean up just a little." And she did. She wiped a counter, moved a towel. It felt innocent. Only later did she understand and what she might have done. 10 years with the King. She spent only 10 years working in Elvis Presley's home, but those years changed everything for Nancy B. Rooks. As the housekeeper and cook at Graceland, she witnessed a side of the King that few ever saw, not the legend on stage, but the man behind the music. And for the next 45 years, people never stopped asking her about it. Nancy became known not just for her work at Graceland, but for the memories she shared about Elvis's life inside those iconic walls. Whether it was fans, journalists, or curious strangers, everyone wanted to know what it was like to live and work so close to one of the most famous people in the world. And she always answered with honesty, warmth, and deep respect. Over the years, she turned those memories into words. Nancy wrote books that gave people a rare glimpse into Elvis's private world. Stories about their conversations, the meals he liked, the mood in the house, and how he treated those around him. Her accounts didn't just humanize Elvis, they revealed how deeply he trusted her. When Nancy passed away on August 15, 2022, at the age of 84, she spent her final days at the Villages at Primacy Place. What makes this even more poignant is the timing. She died just one day before the anniversary of the moment Elvis's body was found inside Graceland. That connection, almost eerie in its timing, reminds us just how closely their lives remained linked even decades later. Elvis Presley's legacy stretches far beyond music. His impact shaped fashion, pop culture, and generations of artists who followed him. But it's stories like Nancy's that add depth to that legacy. Stories that aren't just about fame and spotlight, but about quiet loyalty, human connection, and trust built far from the stage. We hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more amazing stories.